Tappei has just released Arc 9, Chapter 12, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. Anyways, let's begin. Domain expansion, matrix redefinition. This phrase was a declaration of war against the world, according to the witch. Magic was a way of defying the laws of nature and imposing your will on others. In other words, when you chant a spell, it's like you're stating that you're going to break the laws of the world. However, the magic formula might be flawed. There might not be enough mana. The spell could fail, or even backfire. This metaphor was besides the point, because what was being used was not magic. Domain expansion, matrix redefinition. A declaration of war against the world. To destroy the world that others tried to protect. To kill, destroy, break, trample, ravage, desecrate, tear apart, cut up, burn to ashes, crush, smash, melt, saturate. It doesn't matter if it's magic or not, it's all the same. No matter what happens, I will remove Natsuki Subaru from the world. Domain expansion, matrix redefinition. Even if it's the Starlight beyond infinite worlds, I will reach it without fail. The scene changes. 4061. The most difficult person to remove from the board was the Marcus Roswell. He was not moved by emotions. He only cared about his and his camp's success. He was not swayed by profit, and he had a keen sense. The best way was to make him believe he would incur a loss if he did not cooperate, and Schult was used as a pressing point. 972. Next were the Oni sisters. The elder sister was difficult. The elder sister had a sharp intuition. He knew he had to be careful, but there was a weak spot, namely a memory. Since she was reunited with her sister, it was something that he exploited. The younger sister had experienced hardships in the Empire, and as a result was used to tricks and turns. However, she had her guard up. She was not a weak opponent due to the bonds she formed. 633. The one that was the hardest to use emotion to convince was the Internal Affairs Officer. He was not someone who you could bulldoze over. He looked weak, but mentally he was strong. It was easier than Roswell to get him to agree. Since he was more human, trying to be greedy would only get you burned. That was something he learned hundreds of times over. 94. Although the attempts were few, the rare blood flowed with elegance. Exploiting that compassion was the way forward. As someone who liked harmony, it was easy to pave a path beyond her. 5 attempts. I was well acquainted with how to sway her. Honestly, it was easy. The only fails wasn't due to her, but due to myself, due to my hesitation to deceive her. Once I ignored my hesitation, it was easy to fill her amethyst eyes with sorrow. 0 attempts. I never failed once with Natsuki Subaru. That's because I knew him inside and out. I just needed timing. Ol Shamak. So, before I move on, I just want to explain what's going on. Is all these attempts that Aldebaran is stating is how he manipulated the chessboard to remove people from going to the Pleiades watchtower. So it took him 4,000 attempts to make it so that Roswell did not come to the Pleiades watchtower. And you'll notice it took him 94 attempts to convince Frederica to not come. And that's the reason why in the previous chapter, Clint says, wasn't Frederica supposed to be coming? And then Garfield says, oh, there was a change of plans. The change of plans was due to Aldebaran manipulating everyone to ensure that no one comes with them except for Garfield. The highest priority was ensuring Beatrice was caught up in the trump card. With an unfamiliar incantation, Beatrice was too late to react and protect Subaru. Al says, with 3 days, you will assume something will happen on the final day. Ola Shamak was a forbidden technique used against witches. It sealed the gate and bound and cursed them. It's a technique only passed down orally, and therefore only Aldebaran knows it. Perhaps even the witch who made it could be defeated by it, and it was entrusted to Aldebaran because they knew he would not misuse it. In reality, Aldebaran never thought about using it against a witch. In reality, he couldn't. The forbidden technique finally saw the light of day. I understand, brother. No, Subaru, I will not kill you. During the battle in the Great Calamity, Al's trump card against Sphinx failed to show its true power since Sphinx lacked a witch factor. Therefore, this is the first time the true activation of the ability is shown. I picked up the black glass bead on the floor. Within the sphere, Beatrice and Subaru were sealed together. Since Beatrice was a great spirit of the yin attribute, it would be troublesome if she analysed the technique. However, the gamble paid off. Beatrice being contracted to Subaru was also sealed as they shared the same gate. I will begin, Sensei, for the sake of being myself. A golden beast launched at Al. The arm could easily kill him, but Garfiel pinned Al to the floor. Garfiel put his knee on Aldebaran's back, pinning him to the floor. Garfiel asked what Al did to the boss and Beatrice with that magic spell. Al says that Garfiel was wrong, and Garfiel is confused. Al says it doesn't matter. Al bites the backside of his teeth, and a capsule breaks open. Shortly after, Al's blood boiled, and with that, the scene changes. Garfiel leaps at Al at lightning speed. Al counters, smashing Garfiel in the nose, but Garfiel kicked Al's hip. Al's hip shattered, and he knew he shouldn't be incapacitated. He shattered the capsule and stated, "Next." The scene changed. The next time, Al uses his elbow, which is encased in stone, to counter Garfiel and prevent Garfiel from kicking him. Garfiel gets knocked aside, and then Al jumps backwards to create distance. But then Al is encased in water. Ezzo casted it and asked Al why he did that, and what magic it was, and what happened to Beatrice and Subaru. 106. Ezzo spoke like an adult. He is fair and sincere, and has integrity as a person. Therefore, when confronting him, you must show sincerity and respect. If you do that, he will be passive. Roswell would burn your limbs easily, but Ezzo was different. Foolish move. Ezzo is cut off from talking, and he noticed the red colour covering the water. Ezzo tries to heal Al, but fails. Al jumps back after knocking Garfiel away, and uses Eldona to cover himself in earth armour. Ezzo's water move hits Aldebaran, but is blocked by the earth armour, and Al jumps backwards, getting both Garfiel and Ezzo in his view. Garfiel stands up, his nosebleed healed in seconds. Al knew that his body and Garfiel's body was fundamentally different. Garfiel steps forward, but Ezzo tells him to calm down and think things through. Garfiel says that the boss and Beatrice were turned into an orb. However, Ezzo says it's unnatural that Al countered both his and Garfiel's attack. Ezzo says that he never showed Al his abilities, yet Al countered both of them. In one exchange, Ezzo understood that Al had some unfair tactic. No matter how much ingenuity was employed, it was required that Garfiel would tag along to the watchtower. However, that meant that the fighting force was contained to simply Garfiel and Ezzo. Al says that this is still troublesome. Al then bit the pill, and once again he fell to the floor. The scene changes. Ezzo tells Garfiel to not be reckless. However, before he can finish, Al topples a bookshelf, casting and causing thousands of books of the dead to fall, and it makes other bookshelves fall like dominoes. So essentially he knocked over a bookshelf which fell on a different bookshelf, and so on and so forth. It created a sort of domino effect. Ezzo used the wind magic to prevent the shelves from falling over. Al then casted Donar on the bookshelves to the left, right and behind of Ezzo, causing the shelves to collapse onto Ezzo. Ezzo however used the wind magic to jump away. Al showed Garfiel the orb containing Beatrice and Subaru, and then he swallowed it. Garfiel jumped forwards in rage. Garfiel punched Al in the stomach, and Al nearly vomited out the orb, but he didn't. As Garfiel punched Al, he stated, "Territory expansion, matrix redefinition." Once again, he challenged the world. Rage covered Garfield's vision. Half of it was due to Al, but half of it was due to his own inadequacy. He had the role of protecting others. He clenched his teeth and his teeth cracked and then immediately healed due to his divine blessing. Even though they had to keep an eye on Al, Garfiel knew he also had to keep an eye on Subaru. Ezzo even warned him, stating that Subaru is the sort of person who might do anything to help Al, and therefore Garfiel needs to keep an eye on him. Garfiel backhanded Al, but Al dodged at the last moment. No matter how many attacks Garfiel threw, none of them hit him. Al uses Donar. A stone block appeared and Garfiel dodges, but a part of it hits him in the cheek. The blow wasn't strong, not compared to the dragon Mesioria. It wasn't enough to defeat Garfiel. Al was panting with exhaustion. Not even a powerful strike was needed, just one weak attack and the fight would be won, but Garfiel says he cannot hit Al. Garfiel was several leagues above Al, but every one of his attacks missed. Al's counterattacks kept hitting Garfiel, although they weren't strong enough to incapacitate him. Garfiel considered backing off, however Al told him to go cry to his sister and grandmother. This caused Garfiel to charge in. Al mutters that it's the hardest thing to deal with when people charge in. Garfiel charged forwards, then his vision went blurry. Al's trick, grains of sand, blinded Garfiel, but he was gonna go charge forwards no matter what. He sensed an oncoming attack and he attempted to bite it. The fist he caught in his arm was a left arm. That was weird. Aldebaran didn't have a left arm. The fist inside of Garfield's mouth swelled up and it exploded, breaking Garfield's jawbone. The fingers went through Garfield's throat and Garfield couldn't stay standing and he fell to the floor. Al says he lied and an enemy who doesn't think isn't an enemy of his. These words taunted Garfield and turned his vision red. Ezzo watched all of this as Al countered every move. Ezzo says he cannot consider Al inferior, and he casted a spell. Wind was conjured. Ezzo faked it as a water spell, but in reality it was a wind and fire spell. Simultaneous casting would require essentially 2 brains to do, and only 5 people in the world could do something like this, Roswell being one of them. Even if it doesn't end, this would be the fatal blow. Al turned away from Ezzo and the wind that Ezzo conjured. Instead, he faced against the fire that was behind him due to Ezzo's casting. Al faced the fire and he moved into the fire. However, he used his Donar spell to create a shield which protected him. However, even if he escaped the fire, the wind will still get him. Al was then caught by the wind, but at each impact point, so when Al was thrown to the shelf or the wall, he created mud to absorb the impact, almost as if he knew where he was going to be landing. Ezzo considered the hypothesis that Aldebaran could somehow see the future. For example, magicians could know what the enemy's spell would do by reading their mana attribute. Of course, this was a bit different, but it was obvious Al knew what was coming, almost as if he was cheating. Not only that, Al possessed a spell that didn't fit in with the 6 attributes of magic. Ezzo then says he must decide the match no matter what. The scene changes. When Petra heard the roaring sound, she wanted to think it was a mistake. Petra calls Emilia over and says that there is fighting. They speculate that it's Al and Ezzo fighting. Emilia asks if they should go upstairs, and Petra says no, but Emilia says she can send a scorpion to look and see what's happening. Petra once again says no. Petra wishes that Subaru is safe, however Garfiel appears, wounded, and tells Petra to heal him with light magic. Garfiel gets healed and he wraps up the floor of the entrance to the doorway which Petra and Emilia are in, and he blockades the door. Emilia is shocked and asks what he's doing. We see the reason why Garfiel blocked the entrance was because there was water flooding the entire 4th floor. Garfiel says that they must be predicting his moves, but he can't avoid this attack. Garfiel smiled and Petra put her hand on Garfiel's back. She couldn't really do much, but Garfiel was the person blocking the water from really coming into the room. Ezzo then uses magic to speak to Garfiel, telling him to come upstairs. Petra asks if it's Al, and Garfiel says yes. Garfiel then removes the blockade and goes back into the wet hallway, and we see that Ezzo is standing there in the hallway. Petra then covers her face with her hands and tells herself to not cry. Emilia pats Petra's head and Petra starts crying. The scene changes. Al was affected by the torrent of water. He was powerless. Skilled people were coming after him. Their strength was impressive and he had to admire it. The torrent sapped him of his strength and of his warmth. Water couldn't be countered by earth. Al just had to be hit by the water and deal with it. Al vomited out the water. However, a voice tells him to explain himself. Al collapsed, now facing the sky. He saw the stars above. He hated the stars. Garfiel tells him to hand over Captain and Beatrice. Al didn't hate Garfiel. He didn't hate anyone. The only people he hated was himself and Natsuki Subaru. Ezzo tells Garfiel to calm down. Ezzo says that Al possesses some unknown magic or technique, stating no matter what measures are taken, you cannot win every battle. Ezzo had counted Al's power, and Al actually agrees, stating he cannot win every battle. 748. That's how many times Aldebaran tried to escape from the torrent of water. However, Al continues, saying he cannot win every battle, but he just needs to win the last battle. Al says he actually wanted to come here. This is the only place he could get to his victory condition. Al pointed, and Ezzo and Garfiel looked at what he pointed at. He pointed to a book of the dead. The book was swelled up with water. However, the book was open, with its pages easy to view. From the beginning, Al came to the tower to find and use that book. It was the only way to remove Natsuki Subaru. The title of the Book of the Dead. Al says, "It's my name." Ezzo and Garfiel were stunned, but Al was too weak and he could not utilize the opening. However, someone did in fact utilize this opening on behalf of Aldebaran. The pair of eyes that were looking and staring down at the Book of the Dead turned its head up. The eyes looked at Ezzo and Garfiel and muttered, "The stars were bad." The world's strongest creature, clad in blue, spread its wings. In the next moment, the divine dragon Volcanica, no, the divine dragon Aldebaran's breath was unleashed at Ezzo and Garfiel. And with that, the chapter ends. So for those wondering what happened at the end, Aldebaran has his own Book of the Dead. It seems the torrent of water knocked him to the top of the Pleiades watchtower, or on a balcony where Volcanica can sort of see them. Now, the Book of the Dead, which is Aldebaran's Book of the Dead, Volcanica read the book. And because Volcanica is a husk, remember there's no real consciousness or personality, Volcanica's entire existence was overwritten by Aldebaran. And we were talking about this in a previous chapter, because remember Ezzo thought Al was trying to overwrite himself with Priscilla, but in reality Al wanted to overwrite Volcanica with his own Book of the Dead. So Volcanica is now essentially Aldebaran. So now there are two Aldebarans, the Divine Dragon Aldebaran, and of course Aldebaran, the actual Aldebaran. And with that, let me know what you thought.